We have already covered 120 questions related to PMI-ACP. Now in this video, I am focusing on question number 121 to 130. If you are first time watching our PMI-ACP question series, you may want to follow our full playlist where you can find these questions. If you just want to practice and don't want to go through the videos, we also have a practice test created using our previous 120 questions. You can find the link of that practice test. It's a free test, no login required, by following the description of this particular video. In this particular video, I am focusing mainly on delivery domain. Sometime the product domain also will come in picture. There is a possibility of leadership domain also getting touched, because now we are moving towards the later stage like a delivery stage, and the previous domains are expected to show up in these questions. So let's start with question number 121. During a release planning meeting, the Agile team realizes that estimating user stories is taking longer than expected, and the work for the upcoming sprint is still not planned. The release is scheduled in 2 months, and the team is expected to deliver a set of high priority features that improve user experience and reduce response time by 20%. Stakeholders are concerned about potential delay in delivery, and without a proper estimate, it is difficult to plan the release roadmap effectively. Okay, so we have a situation, estimation is taking time, the release something is something on a critical side, we want to increase the customer response time by 20%. Those all things are coming. Yeah, so what do we do? Let's focus on the question. As a Scrum Master, you need to accelerate story point sizing at the release level. What should you do? Okay, so the overall situation is primarily asking me, how can I possibly remind my team to finish the user story point sizing fast, or what can I do so that we have a quickly release planning done? Yeah, primarily by way of estimating stories fast. Option A, select a few expert team members to estimate the user stories to speed up the process. So you can say, yeah, there are, rather than involving the whole team at a release level, we may involve only experts and they may do the estimation, and based on that we plan at a release level. Later on when we go to a sprint level, we will involve the team. Yeah, that's a suggestion coming as an option A. Say in many organizations this practice is followed, but in general we don't expect the team not getting involved in estimation, because we want to focus on autonomy, engagement, and we know when the team is involved, they end up learning about the work and also they own more about that particular estimation. So if I don't get any option, then probably I can come back and think about doing this, selecting this option. But in general, I want to involve the whole team. So I keep option A aside. Option B, use high level rough order of magnitude estimate based on historical data for release planning. That is also a possible solution. But I am a Scrum Master. I probably will not be able to do ROM estimate myself. If this role is asking for a product owner to do, then this choice may still become a candidate, because product owner may do some kind of rough order of magnitude estimate to do a high level planning. Usually such kind of planning are needed or done at a level of roadmap, not at a level of release. At a release level, we do want to involve the team. So as a Scrum Master, I am not going to take a rough order of magnitude estimate for a release level. I better look for better option. Let's see. Option C. Clarify the team that high level estimates are needed and encourage them not to over analyze during ranking. So this is a good idea. We are saying that, okay, we need to focus on talking at a sufficient level. We don't have to get into the details more than needed. The release level estimate can have some variance. So I set the right expectation and then I probably let the team do the estimation fast. Looks a perfect option as of now. Let's see. Option D, delay the release planning until the team has detailed breakdown of each user stories. Definitely not. So we are not doing sprint planning for upcoming releases, yeah, or upcoming during the release planning. So say in a release, you may have a 4 sprints. When you are doing a release planning, you are not planning those 4 sprints at a sprint planning level detail. We still will do a progressive elaboration. That is something we learn. The release planning is a first level of planning you done for a given bigger time box. Then you will have a second level, detail level planning also done when you go for iteration. You can also equate it with your planning onion, where we talk about the vision level plan, the roadmap level plan, the release, and then iteration or a sprint, and then day level plan, which is done at a a daily stand-up level. So overall, coming back to the question, option C looks good because it is focusing on engaging team members. It is focusing on putting the right expectation for estimation. So we are not taking too much time. So we go with option C. So this question is mapped to product domain topic because there we are doing release planning, estimation. If you look at your digital workbook, the estimation topic is covered in a product domain. Question number 122. During release planning 2 months ago, the Agile team estimated a user story. As a registered user, I want to reset my password via OTP so that I can regain access securely as a 5 story point based on initial understanding of the scope or of the work. Now, in a sprint planning, the team has re-evaluated the story and believed it requires a 8 story point instead of 5 due to newly identified complexities. Now, here is a list of complexity: integration with third-party SMS gateway, security compliance requirement such as encryption and multi-factor authentication, and additional edge cases like failure attempt, rate limiting, and handling different country codes. Yeah. So, as a Scrum Master, how should you handle this situation? So, in a simple word, this question is asking there was some estimate which was done at a release level, but when you are reaching to a sprint planning level, you realize that your understanding of the complexity of the volume was not right, and now you have a better understanding. What do you do? Should you keep the old story points or should you change it, and what is the process? Yeah, that's the question. Let's see the option, and as a Scrum Master, I'm guiding here. Option A, ask the team to stick to the original estimate since commitments were already made in release planning. In a simple word, it is not just associated with agile ways of working, it is associated with any project management and any delivery approach. We always need to deal with the latest information. When we know something is requiring more time than before, we have to change it without any confusion. So definitely I need to take a new information in account. I can't just say, you just keep the old estimate and we will continue the way we were planning before. You are not responding to change if you are following the option A. Option B, allow the team members to update the estimate and collaboratively decide if adjustment to the sprint backlog are needed before finalizing the sprint plan. Yeah. So this is saying that you might have already picked up the story for a sprint planning. Now you have a new information. Let the team explore and find out how they want to respond to it. And based on what is their understanding, they will continue. Looks like a great option. Yeah. Option C, escalate the issue to the product owner and the stakeholder to reapprove the estimate before proceeding. You definitely want to keep the communication open. You as a Scrum Master will promote open communication, but this may not require escalation at this point in time. First. Second, in general, product owners are expected to be a part of a sprint planning meeting. So I don't need to have an approval because it is showing like a bureaucracy. In some organization, it may be the case, but in general, until unless question clearly says that you have a specific approval need, we don't go for approval in agile ways of working. We are talking, we are in a sprint planning, we'll take a call. Option D, remove the story from the sprint and push it to a later iteration since estimation change should happen in a backlog refinement. Now it is saying that you are in a sprint planning and now you want to change the story point. Better you don't do it. Go back and maybe we will do in the next sprint this whole story because it is not the right place to do a re-estimation of the story points. Maybe you should do it in a backlog refinement. Now, see, there are two aspects to it. Yes, we do want to identify our mistakes, our error as early as possible. If we have estimated something in a release planning, it should have been revisited during backlog refinement before we come to the sprint planning. It is always a preferred option. But what if you have missed doing it? Now you are here, and just because that you missed doing it, that alone cannot become a reason of not considering this story. It may happen after discussing the new size, product owner may realize, oh, now it is not a priority because I was thinking it's a simple thing. Now it is becoming a complex thing. I will probably do it later. That can happen. Yeah, that is a possibility, but it should be done in collaboration. We can't just rule out that this is not happening this time, it will happen next time. Yeah. So option A, allow the team to update. Whenever we use our team, include everyone, Scrum Master, product owner, and the whole group. So allow the team to update the estimate collaboratively and decide what they want to do. And they may want to change the priority. They may want to change the sprint approach. They can do on their collaborative manner. So option B looks good. In general, as a Scrum Master, I always focus on facilitation and collaboration rather than recommending a one solution. So option B. Now, this particular question is mapped to many things. It is mapped to define product backlog because it is some way interacting and refining the product backlog. It is also becoming like an impairment and risk because it's an uncertainty. So that topic is also somehow getting connected. And it is also focusing on your leadership style that you need to facilitate problem solving. So many tasks are getting touched in this particular question. So say as we go forward, the user story related topics will come with the matrices, with the mindset. When we were talking about mindset, we were not using those example too much, but they all are interconnected. When you are giving the exam, the story may be checking your agile mindset related concepts as well. Question number 123. During a sprint planning session, a team member proposes using linear series for story point estimation. They argue that this approach allows more precise estimate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. However, as a Scrum Master, you notice that this deviates from commonly used non-linear estimation like Fibonacci series 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. What should you do? Yeah. So in a simple word, this question is trying to ask that how open are you to change agile practices, and if someone comes up with the improvement idea which the idea itself challenges the agile practices alone, how should you respond to it? Yeah, that's the question. In general, I should, for exam perspective, I should be very careful directly jumping to the conclusion, either side, yes and no, both side. And in general, I don't try to find an option where I am deviating from generally acceptable agile ideas in general, until unless I see a strong case of deviation given in the question. Yeah? So let's see what we should do. Option A, allowing the team to proceed with a linear scale if they are comfortable, as estimation method should be customized for each team. Yeah? So it is directly concluding through a conclusion that, okay, you can change it because it is something should be suiting to your idea. It's just a one team member saying, but so we should not be probably jumping to it. We can probably make a topic for retrospective discussion. That could have been a good idea, but not allowing them. Option B, ask the product owner to decide which estimation scale the team should use, ensure alignment and business needs. Again, it is too much asking someone to take a call, authority. So we should be focusing on collaborative working. So going to a product owner to take a call is not a good idea. Option C, stop the discussion and mandate the use of Fibonacci sequence since it is the standard agile estimation method. Now, some of you may choose this. Yeah. But see, in general, if I'm choosing this, I'm not showing growth mindset. I'm not showing that I need to educate. I need to talk about why we are doing. I'm not showing agile mindset. I'm too much focusing on agile practices. Yeah. So when you are giving a PMI-ACP exam, you need to be more inclined towards mindset rather than practice. Yeah. Agile mindset is more important. Option D, explain that nonlinear scale helps according to increase uncertainty as complexity grows, making it easier to fit for agile estimation. So in a simple word, it is an explanation that why are we using it. So say in general, there is a little twist in this question also. If we go up, it is talking about sprint planning meeting. So ideally in a sprint planning meeting, you should be estimating stories at 1, 2, 3, maximum at 5 level only. Yeah? Usually there only. Beyond that, maybe a topic of discussion for future release planning and all. So the essence of story point estimation takes care of it, because if you are Fibonacci series based estimation takes care of it. If the requirements are small, at least till 1, 2, 3 level, it's more or less like a linear series. It only starts becoming non-linear when the requirement starts becoming bigger. Yeah, at a later stage, only the gap starts increasing. So option D looks great because I need to educate my team member. I need to focus on inculcating agile mindset. I'm a mentor trainer for my team, so they start following the right agile practices and they know what is the reason behind it. Yeah. So option D for question number 123. Now this maps to promoting agile mindset and principles. So in general, we are focusing on those stories and backlog refinement as a context, but overall question was more linked to that: do you promote agile mindset, agile practices in agile ways of working? Yeah, so that's the task. Question number 124. During a release planning session, the team is estimating a user story to implement a dashboard with multiple charts. One team member says that since he has built similar dashboard before, the story should have a low story point estimate because he can complete it quickly. Another team member disagree, saying that story point should reflect the size and complexity of the work, not just the effort required by an individual. As a Scrum Master, how should you guide the team in their estimation? So you know the theories of story point estimation, you know it's a relative sizing, you know it is not absolute sizing, it is not dependent on individuals' effort, it is dependent on complexity, volume of work, uncertainty, the knowledge, and maybe other factors. And these judgments are made by individuals. Individuals can have a difference of understanding. If I am familiar with the topic, it may look less complex to me. Someone is not familiar may feel more complex to it, but it requires conversation. We can't just say it's low or high. It's not conclusive, but we need to talk about it. That's the mindset. And let's see the option. So, as a Scrum Master, how should you guide? I need to educate them about the estimation process. Option A, encourage the team to estimate based on overall size and complexity of the work, independent of who will implement it. Looks great. Yeah, that option looks very good. Option B, support the first team member's approach since he can complete the work quickly. It deserves a low story point estimate. So it is a possible I may pick up a low story point when I'm putting a planning poker card, yeah, when I'm selecting it during planning poker activity. But it is not just based on my card. We need to give a low story point for the whole story. Yeah, so definitely not. We need to have a conversation. Option C, suggest a breakdown the story into smaller tasks. To each task can be estimated based on effort rather than size. It's a possible thing we can do in option C if we are doing in a sprint planning. But here we are doing first story point estimation, second we are doing release planning, and in a release planning we don't want to get into that much detail. So we are saying that yes, and the question is not about the thing related to how should you plan in this situation. The question is basically asking you how do you guide team in doing the estimation. So I come back to the story point and the essence of relative sizing only, so I ignore the option C. But if this whole conversation becomes a sprint planning or iteration planning conversation, then it could be a good candidate option as a to discuss. Option D, allow the most experienced team member to set the estimate since they have the best understanding of the effort involved. So person A who believes I know more about it, or person B who we think is an expert. But more or less, it's the same case. We need to make the whole team contribute because the planning poker is a collaborative estimation exercise. It is not a senior person or the person who has done this work in past is putting the number. It helps us in doing high level estimation. It helps us in doing release planning. The story point estimation will have errors around 20%. These things will progressively get evolved and we go for iteration planning, and on a daily basis we will be reflecting on our iteration or sprint plan. So those are the places where we will have a more accurate estimation, but as of now we go with a relative estimate. So coming back, option A is the great option in question number 124. So encourage the team to estimate based on overall size and complexity. So I need to promote agile mindset, agile principles and practices. That's something I do. Question number 125. During a sprint review, a senior developer explains a complex technical issue to a business stakeholder using technical jargons and detailed system architectural diagram. The stakeholder appears confused and asks several clarifying questions but still struggle to understand the impact on the product roadmap. Yeah. So we are doing a sprint review and we are also reviewing the roadmap future. That's a possible candidate agenda item in a sprint review. After the discussion of what we have achieved in a previous iteration, we are adapting our future roadmap. And here technical person is explaining something and stakeholder finding difficult to understand that. That's the situation. So as a Scrum Master, how should you handle this situation to ensure effective communication? Yeah. Option A, tell developer to shorten the explanation to avoid overwhelming the stakeholder, even if it means keeping some critical details. So say first part is okay. Don't give too much information than needed. Yeah, that part is, I think, decent. We should be doing that. But the second part is little tricky, even if it means keeping some critical details. Yeah, so I should not be skipping critical details, but I should not be giving too much details as well. Yeah, so let's see if we get a better option. Option B, encourage the developer to reframe the message using simple, non-technical language and relevant metaphor to explain the concept relatable to business stakeholder. That seems to be the perfect answer. You remember in your agile content, in the agile mindset content, you have a topic related to metaphors, and it has been explained that extreme programming promotes metaphors, and whenever we are talking to non-technical people, we should be using metaphors to make things clear. So that is the concept we can directly relate, and that's the option B. Looks great. Option C, ask the stakeholder to review the technical documentation and follow up later if they have more questions. Possible, you can say, we explain you something, but better you read this and we come later. Yeah, that's a possible thing, but we already have option B, which is more inclusive. Option D suggests that all stakeholders attend technical training sessions so that they can understand the technical jargons as well. Yeah, so possible we can do these kind of technical trainings as well to have the conversation, but the whole essence is we are here looking for collaborative working, and communication is the major question here. How do you do effective communication? Learning about each other's language, the developer learning about business and business learning about technology is not a bad idea. It is overall knowledge sharing sessions can happen, but this question is basically focusing on, in this instance, how can we do effective communication, and I can definitely use metaphors to do effective communication here. Now, this particular thing can be mapped to actively engaging stakeholders or customers, and this is coming out of your delivery domain task 6. Question number 126. A new Scrum Master joins a company and notices that team members are hesitant to speak up during retrospective and rarely challenges existing processes. The leadership has expressed concerns that the organization needs a culture shift towards more openness and continuous improvement. One manager suggests rolling out a new set of company values to drive cultural change. What should the Scrum Master do to help influence the cultural change effectively? Okay, so in your delivery mindset leadership domain, you will see these information coming in, that what should we do when we want to have a culture level impact. So few things, culture takes times, culture change takes time. It is something which you cannot push, and at the same time it can be done. It is not something which cannot happen, but it requires collaborative effort, it requires setting the right examples, it requires experimentation, and by doing small experiment we can achieve the goal. So let's see what Scrum Master can suggest here. Option A, acknowledge that culture cannot be changed and focus on process improvement instead of attempting to shift team dynamics. This is too conclusive. We are saying it cannot change. Yeah, it's a little risky. Option B, push leadership to redefine the company's core value and enforce these across all teams to set the right cultural direction. Overall, good idea. Setting the company's core value and communicating about what we want is setting the right message is there, but the later part, after end part, is little risky. Enforce them across all teams to set the right cultural direction. The culture change may not happen with the help of enforcement. Yeah, we need to align our values, our team values, our behavior with the organization value, but I can't just enforce at a value level. Option C, encourage small but impactful collaborative changes, such as creating a psychological safe environment where team members feels comfortable sharing feedback. Looks great. Yeah, so it is saying that, yeah, we take small steps and we need to create the right environment to move forward. So option C looks good. Option B was also good until unless it has an enforcement point. Option C doesn't have anything which makes it negative. Option D, hold mandatory workshop where employees are trained on the desired cultural behavior to ensure alignment with the organization vision. So say option A, B, and D all has relevant points. They are not something which is out of the track. The only thing which makes them little go out is they are focusing on too much mandatory. They are focusing on enforcement, that you must do it. Yeah. A is saying you can't do it. Yeah. So we can easily ignore. But when we compare B and D were saying, yeah, it can done, but it requires some amount of enforcement. So looking at all this, that it can happen, but it can happen incrementally, we come back to the option C because option C has no negative word. So we can go with option C. This can be mapped to perform continuous improvement of your delivery domain topic. Question number 127. Midway through the sprint, the team realizes that a critical server required for test data preparation is unavailable due to unexpected maintenance. Without this server, the team cannot generate test data, which is essential for completing key user story. If unresolved, this risk could prevent the team from meeting the sprint goal. Yeah, this risks the team could prevent the team from achieving the sprint goal. So, as a Scrum Master, how should the team communicate and manage the risk? How should the team communicate and manage the risk effectively? So, you are trying to teach and you are looking for what is a good situation or what is a good steps the team should do in such kind of events. Yeah. So, there is a possible impairment. Yeah, unexpected maintenance is coming. Yeah, and there is a possibility of losing the sprint goal. Yeah, so that something is very very clear. So it is not something which can be kept aside. Yeah, it is not something which will impact us in a next sprint. It is something going to impact us in a current sprint itself. And in general, we should be always targeting to achieve sprint goal. Yeah, there should be predictability inside the sprint. So we should take care of it. We can't avoid it. Let's see options. Option A, raise the risk to the Scrum Master who will decide the next step and escalate if necessary. So you expect team to raise the risk to you and then you will take care of it. Definitely not a good idea. They can race, yeah, and but Scrum Master will decide what the next step and escalate it. Can happen, yeah, can happen. It is not something wrong. Servant leadership can also come in, but in general we should be focusing on more facilitative, reminding or informing about the risk to a Scrum Master is not a bad idea. Yeah, but let's see if we can get a better one, because it is focusing on then Scrum Master will decide what to do next. Yeah, that is little a tricky thing. Next part. Option B, document the risk in a risk register and revisit in the sprint review. So say you may have a risk register. There is a possibility. Yeah. Though in the pure agile world, we don't expect such kind of documentation done because we are working on a very frequent cycle. But there is a possibility. There is a possibility of having risk register. But the later part makes it clearly out that you will review it in a sprint review. Yeah, sprint reviewers, even if sprint review is not at all probably a relevant place, even in a sprint retrospective, that's too late. It is impacting your current sprint. If this thing is impacting something in future, probably that can also go, but not now. Option C, wait until the sprint retrospective to bring up the risk and reflect on how to handle similar situation in the future. You can definitely do it, but right now current sprint is getting impacted. First you need to do something about it, then probably you can discuss in a retrospective meeting as well. Option D, make the risk visible on the team board immediately and discuss it in the upcoming coming daily Scrum meeting. So this looks good idea. Yeah. So say I am taking immediate action. First thing is, and making it visible may become visible to the team as well as to the Scrum Master, not only to the Scrum Master. I'm making it to the whole team visible. That's a more good thing. Product owner may also see it. So we are focusing on transparency. And on top of transparency, we are also focusing on interactive communication, which will happen in a daily stand-up tomorrow. Yeah. So daily stand-up is definitely a place to reflect on what are we doing, what we are planning to do, and if there is a risk and impairment which is blocking us from achieving the sprint goal. So that way, option D has all the elements which makes it a winner option in this particular question. So we can go with option D. So overall, it is focusing on managing impairment and risk. That's one of the topic of your delivery domain, task 3. Question number 128. During a backlog refinement meeting, the team discuss an upcoming user story scheduled for next sprint, which involves integrating a payment gateway with a third-party API. A team member raises a potential risk. The API documentation is incomplete and they are unsure about authentication process and response handling. This uncertainty could delay the development and impact the next sprint progress. Yeah, so we are not yet in the sprint that something is happening. The team suggests conducting a spike to explore the API. So you need to do some exploratory learning. Understanding this authentication flow and determine potential challenges before committing to the story in the next sprint. Great idea. You should be doing a spike about it. As a Scrum Master, what should you do next? Yeah. So in a way, whenever the question comes as a Scrum Master, what should you do next? So in a way, we are asking what should be the right practice in such situation? How do you advise the team, and what probably you end up doing in this particular situation? Yeah. So option A, add a spike in the current iteration and remove low priority story from the sprint to create a space for risk mitigation. Jumping to implementing the spike. So it's a good thing, but the second important element which we need to keep in mind, not to negotiate current sprint goal. Now here we don't know, the option is not clearly showing that if you remove the low priority item it will impact the sprint goal or not. Yeah, it is not very clearly said, but if it impacts then I should not be doing it. If without impacting the current sprint goal I can run this spike, I think it's a good idea, but that is something can be collaboratively figure it out. I can't just say, let's do it and we will do something else and we will remove something else from our current sprint. Not a good idea. Option B, wait until sprint planning and let the team investigate the API as a part of the development process. We can say, okay, good idea. Let's talk about it when we do a sprint planning. Possible thing, but then from a question perspective you are not responding to the information which you got a risk, you have to do something about it. You, if you decide to accept the risk, yeah, acceptance of the risk could be the option B. We can say we are accepting it and we are moving forward, but in general until unless we clearly see this thing is low priority and you have to live with it, we don't go with acceptance as a strategy. If I can get some better or a active acceptance rather than passive acceptance, that will be a better idea rather than just keeping me in the acceptance stage. Option C, ensure the spike is added to the product backlog and educate the product owner and stakeholder about its importance before finalizing the prioritization of the next sprint. That looks great. So we are saying great idea, let's add into the product backlog and let me discuss and make sure the product owner understands it. If the product owner wants to pick up the story in the next sprint, they need to plan the spike also in the next sprint, so that's something becomes a priority item. And maybe they want to decide that let's wait for another sprint and do a spike first for this particular user story. So I'm not concluding, I'm just adding this information to a product backlog and I'm making sure the product owner is aware. So anyone can add item into the product backlog, but the final prioritization will be done by the product owner. So we are collaboratively doing it, but ownership of the product backlog is with the product owner. So option C looks great. Option D, escalate the issue to the product owner and suggest removing the integration story from the next sprint. So say because of C, D may happen. Yeah, but I can't say D should happen. Yeah. So C is the better option. Because of C, probably we prioritize, we change, or we may create a more space for the next sprint. We better take it in a more systematic approach rather than concluding directly. So we go with option C. And this mapped with your managing impairments and tasks, risks in a agile phase of working. Question number 129. During a sprint, the team discovers that a third party API required for a key feature is experiencing frequent outage, making it unreliable for integration. This issue poses a significant risk to meeting the sprint goal as feature depends upon API availability. As a Scrum Master, what should you do next? So whenever these risks and other things are coming, we need to be very clear where is the impact. Now here the impact is in a current sprint, so it's a little more urgent issue and you need to do something collaboratively to get it resolved. As much collaboration you can do is a good idea, and you can also demonstrate your servant leadership. Option A, facilitate a discussion with the team to explore alternative solution such as caching, mock services, and different API, and encourage them to decide on the best approach. Great. Yeah. So I can facilitate the conversation, which can help them in finding the right answer. Good idea. Option B, immediately escalate the issue to the leadership and wait for resolution before continuing work on affected features. So see, the idea here is that I can go for escalation. Yeah, that's a possibility. As a Scrum Master, I may need to do a problem resolution. And here there is an indication that it is something to do with the third party integration. So it may lead there. There is a possibility. But the word immediate may be a little too urgent. We need to ensure that we have a problem solving done at our level. Facilitate problem solving is your task as a leader. So I facilitate problem solving rather than I jump to and escalate the problem solving. In a real world, it depends upon the overall context, but from exam perspective, I first try to facilitate, and I already have an answer talking facilitation, and so I better go with option A. Option C, tell the team to proceed with development as planned and assume the API will be stable by the time of deployment. Yeah. So this becomes an acceptance of the risk. So as we discussed, till the time you see the impact is very low, you don't go for acceptance, and you should be doing things in a more collaborative and proactive manner. Option D, assign one team member to investigate potential solution and report back with the decision in the next sprint review. So say it can happen. Yeah, that is possibility, but it should be done after discussion as a group. So option A may lead to option D, where we as a team may identify that this person will do this particular thing, but and again it cannot be scheduled beyond an next sprint review because the impact is on your current sprint goal. Yeah. So overall, I come back and say it's a current sprint goal. I can't wait for retrospective here. I can't wait for review meeting here. I need to do something now, and that's why option A. So you can map it to manage impairments and risk, your delivery domain. So question number 130, final question for this video. During a sprint, a developer encountered a critical deployment issue caused by an incorrect configuration in the staging environment. Yeah. This led to delay in testing and last minute fixes, impacting the sprint progress and increasing overall delivery risk. Okay, so that's a issue which you have identified, and you also identified the cause of it, and you also identified that this issue also were impacting the sprint goal if there was a sprint goal was at a risk. As a Scrum Master, what is the best approach to ensure that concrete actions are taken to prevent its recurrence in a future sprints? Yeah. So this one is focusing on how do I facilitate knowledge sharing, how do I facilitate that we continuously improve, how do I make sure that we learn from our previous failures. And that is a question. So I should be making sure that team collaboratively discuss, there is a knowledge transparency, there is a lesson learned, that kind of stuff will be a good answer. Option A, ask the developer to document the issue for future reference but take no further actions. You can do, yeah, you can say let's report it in a lesson learned. But the overall idea of agile way of working is collaborative. It is just not documentation. I want to make sure it get consumed also. Yeah, so that's the little, if I can have a discussion, interactive communication, it would be better. Option B, ask the developer to update the configuration management guideline and ensure the team is aligned on the change. Yeah, better than A. Yeah, rather than just put it in a document, you make it a little more specific that you will be updating configuration management guideline and ensuring the team understand what we are changing because of the previous issue. Better. Yeah. Option C, since the issue is resolved, avoid spending time on it and move on to other priority. Definitely you don't want to do it because the question is not asking you to do it. Yeah, if the question if the issue was not that important, then why we have a question here? Yeah, so I don't go and undermine the question itself. So option C is out. Option D, ensure the issue is added to the discussion point in the retrospective, facilitate root cause analysis, and encourage the team to define concrete action items to prevent reoccurrence. Yeah. So option D includes option B. Option B was there, which was saying that we can change a configuration management guideline. But option D is saying, let's talk about it, let's figure it out and find out the actions so that we don't make this mistake again. So great idea, facilitate problem solving and ensure the learning happening all the time. That's something you focus on, continuous improvement of your processes. So this is how we can see it. So these were the 10 questions for your PMI-ACP exam preparation. If you have a specific query related to PMI-ACP, put it into the comment section of this particular video. If you want to attend a class where you get guided on PMI-ACP preparation, I do run PMI-ACP workshops. So you can find details in our description area of this particular video.